Hello, welcome to Anybody Can Learn. Today we will solve a problem and the problem statement is consider the following feature vectors. So we have given the 5 feature vectors. So and the label of these 4 points are y1 is equal to 1, y2 is equal to 0, y3 is equal to 1, y4 is equal to 0, y5 is equal to 0. And if uses a KNN algorithm with a k is equal to 3, what would be the predicted label for the following test point? And x of test is equal to column vector 1 1 1 1. So this is our test vector and we want to predict the label for this test vector, that is test point. So these are the 5 points x1, x2, x3, x4 and x5 are the 5 points given to us and their corresponding labels are x1 label is 1, x2 label is 0, x3 label is 1, x4 label is 0 and x5 label is 0. So first we find the distance between the test point and all the points. So this can be calculated by the Euclidean distance formula. As we have the 4 features, we will use the formula d of xz is equal to square root of x1 minus z1 square plus x2 minus z2 square plus x3 minus z3 square plus x4 minus z4 square. Note that we will use the square distance d square to make the calculation easy. So let's calculate the distance between the test point and the x1 point. So d square of x test and x1 is 1 minus 1 square plus 1 minus 2 square plus 1 minus 0 square plus 1 minus 1 square. So 1 minus 1 square is 0 square, that is equal to 0. 1 minus 2 square is minus 1 square. Minus 1 square is equal to 1. And 1 minus 0 square is 1 square. 1 square means 1. And 1 minus 1 square is 0 square. 0 square is 0. So add 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0. So it's 2. Therefore d square of x test x1 is 2. Actual distance would have been d is equal to square root of 2, that is approximately equal to 1.414. But for the easy calculation we are using d square. Now calculate the distance between the test point and a training point 2, that is x2. So d square of x test and x2 is 1 minus 4 square plus 1 minus 1 square plus 1 minus 2 square plus 1 minus 3 square. So 1 minus 4 square is minus 3 square. Minus 3 square means 9. 1 minus 1 square means 1 plus 1 square. So 1 plus 1 square means 2 square. 2 square is 4. 1 minus 2 square is minus 1 square. Minus 1 square is 1. 1 minus 3 square is minus 2 square. Minus 2 square means 4. So 9 plus 4 plus 1 plus 4 is equal to 18. So distance between x test point and x2 point is 18. Now calculate the distance between the test point and the feature vector x3. So it is 1 minus 2 square plus 1 minus 1 square plus 1 minus 1 square plus 1 minus 2 square. So 1 minus 2 square means minus 1 square. Minus 1 square is equal to 1 square. 1 minus 1 square is 0. 1 minus 1 square is 0. And 1 minus 2 square is minus 1 square. Minus 1 square means 1. So 1 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1 is equal to 2. So distance between the test point and a feature vector 3 is 2. Now calculate the distance between the test point and x4. So it is 1 minus 0 square plus 1 minus 1 square plus 1 minus 0 square plus 1 minus 0 square. So it is 1 plus 0 plus 1 plus 1, so it is 3. So distance between the test point and the feature vector 4 is, that is d square is 3. Now calculate the distance between the test point and the feature vector x5. So it is 1 minus 5 square plus 1 minus 4 square plus 1 minus minus 1 square plus 1 minus 2 square. So 1 minus 5 square is minus 4 square. Minus 4 square means 16. 1 minus 4 square means minus 3 square. Minus 3 square is 9. 1 minus 1 square means 1 plus 1 square. So 1 plus 1 square is 2 square. 2 square means 4. And 1 minus 2 square is minus 1 square. Minus 1 square means 1. So add 16 plus 9 plus 4 plus 1, that is equal to 13. So d square of x test and x5 is 13. Now make a distance table. So distance between the test point and a training point x1 is 2 and its label is 1, and distance between the test point and a training point x2 is 18 and its label is 0, and distance between the test point and the training point x3 square distance is 2 and the label of x3 is 1. Distance between the test point and training point x4 square distance is 3 and label of x4 is 0, and square distance between the test point and the training point is 13 and the label of x5 is 0. Now sort the distance. So the distance we calculated, the square distance we calculated is 2, 18, 2, 3 and 13. So sort this distance, that is means arrange it from smallest to the largest. So 2, 2, then come 3, then come 18 and so 13. So we are arranging distance in ascending order. So let us form the table. So point 1 x1 with label 1 has a square distance 2, x3 with a label 1 has a square distance 2, and x4 with a label 0 has a square distance 3, x2 has with a label 0 has a square distance 18, x5 with a label 0 has a square distance 30. The question has given k is equal to 3. That means we will find, consider the first 3 training point. So the first 3 training points are x1, x3 and x4, and their corresponding labels are x1 label is 1, x3 label is 1 and x4 label is 0. So we will consider the label 1, 1 and 0. Now perform the majority voting between these label. So number of the ones are 1 and 2. So the 1 has 2 votes for class 1, and number of the zeros are 1. So 0 class, we have 1 vote for class 0. So therefore 2 is greater than 1. Therefore class 1 has the majority. So calculate y mod of y hat of mod of 1 comma 1 comma 0 1. Mode means the value with the highest frequency. Here the 1 has the highest frequency, therefore its mode is 1. Therefore we will predict the label of the test point as 1. Thank you.